Hey everybody, today we're going to quickly walk through how to install Astro and how to connect it to OpenClaw. Astro will work with any agent that can talk over IRC, so it doesn't necessarily have to be OpenClaw, but that's what I use, and I think a lot of other people are using it, so I figured it would be good to make just kind of a quick walkthrough on how to get both of those connected. So a couple prerequisites here. First of all, I've already installed OpenClaw. I'm not going to cover how to do that. I'm running an Ubuntu VM here that has that installed. We'll do some configuration of OpenClaw, but we're not going to start from scratch. If you need information on that, that's freely available on the web. The other thing that has already been done is I've already installed Docker within this VM. If you haven't installed Docker on an Ubuntu VM, I'd highly recommend just go to the Docker website. They've got some really good instructions on how to get that up and running. There's a couple of commands you run, and then next thing you know, that's all good to go. You'll know you have Docker and it's working properly if you can run the command docker ps, which I can. Right now I have no containers loaded. That's to be expected. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go install Astro. And to do that, you simply go to the website, go to runastro.sh, and copy the curl command here, and paste that into your terminal window. First thing it's going to ask you for is if you want to include Tailscale networking. The image that I've built contains Tailscale. If you want to use it, I use it. It's a great way to kind of lock everything down. Ensures that you don't have to expose any ports to anybody. For the sake of this demo, I'm not going to install that, but if you do choose to use that and hit yes, it's going to ask you for an authentication token, which you can get from the Tailscale portal. That allows you to link that up and add that to your VPN network. So we're going to say no on this. The first thing that this script will do is it'll go out and it will clear out any existing installs. This is also your upgrade path, so if you want to upgrade Astro, you just simply run that script again. It'll go out, grab the latest containers, and install those. All the data for your installation gets stored in a local directory, which I'll show you in a moment. So as you upgrade or remove containers, your data will remain persisted within your VM or wherever you're running it. So this will take a few more seconds here. It's going down and it's pulling all of the base images that it needs. Once it's finished, what it's going to show us is it's going to show us the port in which Astro will be accessible, and it's also going to give us some instructions on how to remove it and things like that. So we'll give this another minute here. Okay, we can see it's about to start the Astro server up. And so here we have our URLs. Astro comes with a built-in IRC server, which is useful, and we're going to use that in a moment here to connect to OpenClaw. And it's giving you the kind of the location where that's running. It's giving you the location of where your data is. So if we just do an ls here, we see we've got our Astro data. In there is all of our documents, our embeddings, all of our configuration. That all gets stored within this local folder. Also, as you can see here, if you want to watch or troubleshoot Astro, you can run this docker command to watch the logs. You can stop Astro with this command, and you can remove it with the remove-f Astro. So we have an instance up and running. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to pull up the web interface now. We've got a green light here, which means our IRC server is online. We can chat to that once we have something connected to it. We have all of our different tools here. Now, in a different video, I'm going to cover all the different features of Astro. You might want to pop over to that and watch a more in-depth review of what we can do with Astro. But our goal with this video is just to get everything connected and up and running. So the very first thing I'm going to do, it comes with a default universe, but just to give us a little bit of sample data, I'm going to create a new universe. Universes are just a way we can kind of segment all of our different work areas. Think of it as like a workspace. And so I'll call this Mark's test. And down here we have a little template. You don't have to choose one, but if you just kind of want to get started, based on the type of things you're planning to do in this universe, you can pick whatever's relevant. I'm going to go software engineer. I'm going to hit create. And now we have our test environment. We got a couple sample action items in here. And we got some markdowns that we can play around with. and a couple different categories have been set up for us as well. So we've got kind of a starting point here. Okay, so the first thing is, how do we get OpenClaw to actually connect and talk to Astro so that we can interface with it through our agent network interface here? And the answer to that is to configure it for IRC. So we're going to go back to OpenClaw here, and I'm just going to run OpenClaw configure. So take a second to load up here. And we are going to configure a channel. So most folks using OpenClaw are generally using it with Slack or iMessage or something along those lines. You can still continue to use that, but we need to add a new channel that can interface with Astro. So Astro has that built-in IRC server. So we're going to go to channels. We're going to say configure. I'm going to scroll down here to IRC. And now we're going to start plugging in our settings. So the first thing it's going to ask you for is whether or not to use TLS. We do not use TLS currently for the IRC server that we host. We'll probably be adding that soon, but at the moment that's not in there. So we'll say no to that. It's going to want the host. So the host is running locally. So we'll say localhost. We actually, just something to be aware of, it's remembering this from the last time I set up. I do not use the standard IRC port. You're going to want to make sure if this does not say 6667, you're going to want to change it to that. Usually it's a different port that's default, so make sure that that says 6667. I don't need to change it in this case because it's remembering from the last time I did this. At that point, it's going to want you to give it a nick. I always like to do something silly like claw. You can name it whatever. Whether or not to set the username to that, we want to say yes. Real name, I usually just keep that with OpenClaw, the default. This one's kind of one to consider. I like to, so Astro comes pre-configured with an Astro channel. That's the very first channel it creates. I tend to have Claw connect to my main Astro channel, but I've also done some things where I have multiple channels. Astro will support multiple channels, so if you set up multiple agents with Claw, you can have each agent talk in a different channel, things like that. We're not going to do that in this video. We're just going to set up the basics. So for this one, I'm just going to have it auto-join Astro. Then it wants you to configure the access. We're going to say yes to that. You generally want to lock this down and make sure this is secure, but for the sake of this demo and to keep things simple, I'm going to leave that open. And we do not need to configure a NIC serve. And at that point, we've set everything up. So now, I'm going to go to finished. And we are going to configure our DM access pairings. And I'm going to say again, just open for now. And that should do it. And so now we say continue. And the configuration is complete. In Astro, up in the upper right-hand corner, it's going to show you all of the active bots that are currently in the channel. Right now there's two. There's Astro itself, which is the interface I'm in, and then there's Astro Log, which is a back-end service that essentially monitors all of the different conversations going on and stores those so that we have those for history and record keeping. We might do some interesting stuff with that later too, like maybe potentially vectorize. But for now, it's just the goal is to just to kind of retain all those chat histories so that as you pop up this interface, you can kind of scroll back and see what's going on. So you'll notice while I was talking, a new agent showed up named Claw, which is great. That means our OpenClaw agent has connected and is now available. To interface now, or to communicate with OpenClaw, the default configuration is to reference the agent's name before speaking. I've actually, on the version that I use, the instance I'm running, I actually took that off. You can turn that off so that it'll just respond to anything. I'm going to keep that on for now, but I would advise turning that off and just having it respond to everything. It's a nice feature, especially if you have multiple bots running in here and you want to like individually access each one of them. But the problem is most of the time I forget to reference Claw's name when I'm asking for something, and then it sits there and I think it's doing stuff and it's not. So I would advise the best way to do that is there's some options in the UI to do that, or you can just prompt the main agent in Claw. You can prompt Claw here and actually probably do it, and just say, hey, going forward, I don't want you to require me to reference your name before responding. So what I'm going to do here now is say hello to Claw. Let's make sure this is working. I'll give it a second to respond here. We are connected. So I can officially now interact with my OpenClaw server from Astro. The next kind of step we want to take here is connecting the MCP link. So we can communicate with Claw, but I want Claw now to be able to interact with all the different features of Astro. So whether it's adding new Markdown, reading Markdown, adding things to feeds, updating my documents, or even just posting, information to me from here. It's going to need access to the API endpoints that backend Astro. So we're going to set that up next. Before I forget, though, there's also the option to have multiple channels, as I mentioned before. So if you configure Claw to connect to multiple IRC channels, it'll automatically create those channels on the IRC server, and you'll see them show up on the left-hand side here as a new tab. You can also create new channels from Astro. Doesn't make a lot of sense, though, if there's nothing in there. So I generally, if I want to create more channels, I usually create an agent for each channel. So I'll go into OpenClaw, create a new agent called, Research Claw, for example, and then create a Research IRC channel for it to connect to. And then now I get some different tabs, so I can kind of tab between the different conversations with different agents. So there's some pretty advanced stuff you can do here, but we'll keep it simple for now. So the next thing we're going to do is we are going to set up our MCP server. To do that, it's actually fairly simple. All we have to say is Claw, please connect to my MCP server for my app, Astro, at HTTP So all we're doing is that we're giving it the URL to the MCP server that's also baked in to Astro, making sure to reference its name, because if you don't do that, it won't listen to you. And essentially just telling it connect to my MCP server for my app, and giving it the address and hitting send. And at this point, it's going to start working. Sometimes this can take a little while, I've noticed. I think it has to pull down tooling to do this, and it has to do some configuration. It's not going to take so long here because I've already done it before. But just be warned that if you run that and it's taken a while, that can be normal. So now what it's done is it's actually created my link to Astro, and I can run some different tools and stuff. If you're kind of wondering about URLs and stuff too, by the way, all of the information about where you can point stuff to is available in the little help icon here, and it's going to give you the details on the port and the address that the IRC is serving on, or the IRC server is running on, the MCP integration, stuff like that. And I've also included some sample prompts that you can feed OpenClaw to kind of help you configure. Now, your mileage may vary on some of those prompts. It might ask you more additional questions. It all depends on how you've configured OpenClaw and what LLM you're using to kind of back end it. But we should, in theory, be good to go. So let's test this out. First thing I always love to ask is, what tools do I have available to me? So say, Claw, what tools do we have available from Astro? We'll give this a second or two because it's got to make some calls to figure that out. And here we go. And it's currently exposing 29 different tools. Ability to list the universes, set a default universe. So as we early on, we created that universe marks test. As you start to develop more, you're going to want to potentially switch those contexts, so you can just simply do that using that tool. We can read and write Markdown. We can update Markdown. You can search your action items. You can have it add an action item. You can have it search your documents. So one thing I'll mention too, all the documents that you upload get vectorized, and there's a RAG endpoint available to Claw, so it can actually, as you chat with it, it can go reference anything that's within your document repository here and search and provide you with provide you with answers based on that context. Feed posts, pretty much anything you can do within the application, there is support for doing that. So as a quick example, I'm going to say, please add a new action item. Oops. New action item titled Mark's Test. Done. Now if I go look at my action items, oh, the one thing it probably did, is it put it in the default universe. And that's because I did not set the default universe to Mark's Test. That's okay. That can easily be solved by either setting the default universe or in that request saying something along the lines of, please create a action item titled Mark's Test in the universe Mark's Test, and it's going to be smart enough to go add it over there. So no big deal. As you can see, it added it. You can certainly instruct it to add additional properties, make it high priority. Again, in a future video or another video, we're going to talk specifically about the action item feature set. But pretty much anything, any property that you can edit through the UI of Astro, you now have accessible to you through this chat interface. So the last thing I'm just going to mention is, you might think, well, that's cool. Now I can interact with this stuff, but you know, things like IRC or Slack or different types of clients are more to my liking. You can absolutely, you know, run your favorite IRC client, connect to this server, and chat with it that way. You don't have to do it through Astro. Also, there is a mobile version of Astro as well that you can with your mobile device. It's completely mobile friendly, and you can do everything on your phone. And so you don't necessarily have to use that desktop interface we were just working with for your day-to-day. But we've successfully connected the two. They work together. And now from here, we can start to do some more advanced stuff. So stay tuned for some more videos where we talk a little bit about some of the other things you can do, such as we have a prompt library in here where with a scheduler, so you can schedule prompts through this interface and have those run almost like cron. So if you don't like the way the cron interface works within your favorite agent and you want to control that in a more centralized location, you can do that. We can also do some really advanced things with the markdown now. So we can instruct OpenClaw to go out, pull down the markdown from our markdown repository, do things and then update that, go back and update that. So there's just like a lot of really cool workflow things you can achieve now that we've connected the two. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon in the next video.